need to do plays a role in the society to ensure that these mistakes do not happen again. So that feature will be coming to your screens a bit later on. But why don't we get started with the latest making headlines? You can follow this bulletin on our Facebook page on EBN TV as well as on YouTube. Our SMS line is 23993. It is open. Talk to us. Tell us where you are watching us from. So let's kick it off. Now, Azimio leader Raila Odinga has yet again announced that he is set to lead another anti-government demos come Wednesday next week, after condoling with families that lost their loved ones. Speaking on Thursday afternoon, Odinga has stated that the government is out to frustrate the opposition after arresting the former Kakamega County Governor Wycliffe Oparanya. The opposition has, however, stated they will not back down until the government addresses their grievances.
Tumesema tumetangaza siku 5 ya maombolezi kwa wale watu wetu ambao wamekufa na wale ambao wamepata majeraha. Kwa hivyo siku 5 hizo hakuna chochote kitafanyika. Lakini tumesema Jumatano ijao tena Kenya yote watajumuika. Kutakuwa na kamkunji nyingine Jumatano ijayo. Wapende wasipende, watashika sisi zote hapa Eugene. Lakini baada ya hayo Kalonzo nyingine atatokea, Martha nyingine atatokea, Eugene nyingine atatokea, Wairia. Hii ni kama mto Nile. Liona polisi jambazi ambayo walikuwa maamrishwa kujitokeza kama maadui ya Wakenya, wakaanza kupigana na Wakenya kwa njia ya kijambazi.
President William Ruto has condemned the opposition leader Raila Odinga for his anti-government demonstrations that has seen property worth millions destroyed, 9 dead and many injured. Ruto has reiterated that he is not ready in any way to let the opposition into his government. The president has slammed the opposition for fighting his Finance Act and says nothing, and it is the only way to set the country free from debts. Victor Enzobeli reports.
Ndio kwa sababu unasikia ile mtu ya maandamano anakazirika na mimi sasa, ameharibu, amevunja maduka, amevunja sijui nini, ameweka vijana wakaharibu mali, amezusha mpaka maafa imetokea kwa sababu wako na hasira ati vile nimepanga atakosa watu ya kufanya maandamano na atakosa watu ya kutupa mawe. Mimi nauliza nyinyi watu wa Tharaka, kuna mtu anazaliwa ili aende afanye maandamano? Kuna mtu anazaliwa ili aende atupe mawe? Hii mtu ya kitendawili mimi nataka niwahakikishie. Hii mtu ni mtu ya kisirani. Mimi nataka niulize nyinyi watu wa Tharaka, mnataka tukubaliane na hii mtu? Tuko pamoja? Nimkalie ngumu? Nimkalie We cannot accept anarchy in the Republic of Kenya. Na ndio mimi nawaambia our handshake brothers, nyinyi mnapanga, mnatumia pesa mlizoiba kupiganisha Kenya, kununua vijana waharibu mali, walete fujo, walete maafa, kwa sababu hamutaki tuendelee kama Wakenya, mnataka kutuweka mateka wenu. Lakini mimi nataka niwaambie tutajikomboa kama Wakenya.
Your Excellency, tungetaka kusema tukiwa hapa katika Mount Kenya, sisi mambo ya mauaji hatujui, mambo ya kuharibu mali hatujui. Sisi ni watu ya kuchunga mali na kutafuta mali. Na ndio tunasikia mbaya tukiona Peter Munya ametumwa hapa na Raila kuchafua hapa Meru na Tharaka Nithi. Akwende. Na sisi tunasema tutakuwa na mkutano ya viongozi. Ndio tuongee mambo ya huyu Peter Munya, huyu Nderito Mureithi, huyu Kioni na huyu Mwangi wa Iria na Martha Karua. Na tunasema rais wetu hapa katika mlima, hakuna mtu atakubaliwa hapa kuja kuleta fujo na kuharibu mali.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has issued a stern warning to Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition supporters who are after destroying property. Kindiki, who was speaking in Kiserian, has warned that the police will use any means possible to stop those who want to cause unrest in the country from advancing their agenda. The Cabinet Secretary has, however, vowed to treat the demonstrators who are destroying property as terrorists.
Vilevile hata viongozi wetu ambao wako katika mrengo wa serikali vilevile lazima tufuate sheria. Nasema hivi kwa sababu nimeona kuna sehemu zingine kama pale Narok na sehemu zingine kuna vile kuna mambo ya uhalifu inaendelea hapa, na ukifuatilia incitement inatoka na baadhi ya viongozi pale. Kwa hivyo sisi walinda usalama, ukivunja sheria, uwe upinzani, uwe kwa chama ambaye ni ya serikali, tutakamatana na wewe vilevile. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Mimi nawaomba waone mfano wa viongozi wa Kajiado hapa. Wachukue mfano ya hawa viongozi wetu wa Kajiado hapa. So wale wanafikiri watatuchosha ati watarudi tena na hiyo vurugu yao. Jana hata walikuwa na bahati, walitoka mpaka wakaanza kungoa barabara. Siku hiyo ingine hata hawatafika pale. Tutanyoroshana nao kabla hata hawajafika pale. Sio kama tunaelewana. Yes, and if you are a politician and you are organizing violent protests and destruction of property, we are going to arrest and prosecute you, and we shall not provide you with armed security, because when you are protesting, Article 37 says of the Constitution, you must be peaceful and you must be unarmed.
Squatters residing in East African Portland land situated in Athi River in Mavoko, Machakos County have castigated the Investment, Trade and Industry Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria for associating them with the bloody anti-government protests at Mlolongo town. The CS Kuria, through his Twitter handle, had insinuated that violence witnessed on Wednesday at Mlolongo was about the government cement processor prime land in Mavoko that was planned and executed by squatters. As Roifan Shikuku reports, the squatters are now demanding for a public apology from the CS, noting that his tweet amounts to intimidation and empty threats.
Tukiangalia kama ni unga ulikuwa 250 wakati Raila na Uhuru alikuwa kwenye handshake. Ninashangaa kwamba saa hii ni nini kinasababisha Raila aende maandamano kudaisha kwamba unga ushuke na hakuenda maandamano wakati alikuwa kwenye handshake. Hii propaganda inayoendeshwa wakiongozwa na baba yao Raila Amolo Odinga na wale wabunge ambao kwamba hawana uamuzi wala fikra wala mawazo, atakachosema Raila wao wote wamenyamaza mabugwe kama ambao kwamba hawana akili.
Now, apologies for that. That was the wrong video that was talking about the Kilifi leaders condemning Azimio, but initially had mentioned about the squatters who are condemning the Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria's remarks on his Twitter account that insinuated that the destruction of property and the bloodshed that was witnessed in Mlolongo was all about that prime land that belongs to Athi River, Portland. And he alleged that the squatters were responsible for that, even as, you know, they were trying to get back that particular land. So we will be listening into that a bit later on. Now, United Democratic Alliance UDA leaders in Kilifi have condemned Wednesday demonstrations organized by Azimio leaders in the country, terming it a major threat to the tourism sector. The leaders say the destruction witnessed during the demos in the wake of the high tourism season could have a negative impact, as tourists could not opt for other destinations. Belinda William with the details.
Watupotezea hasara katika maisha yetu. Niwaombe wa Kenya, watu wa Pwani, watu wa Kilifi, tuangalieni serikali. Hakuna deni ambalo kwamba litaweza kuongezeka wakati huwezi kujipiga. Si nchi nyingine zaendelea.
maandamano ili wale watalii waende sehemu zingine kwa sababu Kilifi hakuna usalama. Alafu mtuambia kama mnataka watu wa Kilifi wapate ajira. Tutapata ajira wapi? Kama utalii mnaumaliza. Be genuine so that the people of Kilifi and the youth of Kilifi can get employment and help themselves to grow.
Ni ombi langu kwa wana Malindi na Kenya nzima kwa jumla, sisi tufate mkondo wa amani. Swala linaloendelea la kwamba mafuta yamepanda, kwamba unga umepanda, ni nini kimepanda, ni ukweli kwa sababu hakuna vyenye tutasuluhisha hili tatizo la deni tuko nalo kwa njia ya kuendelea kukopa. Ni sisi wenyewe tufanye kazi ndio tuweze kujipatia riski tulipe lile deni.
Speaking on Thursday during the launch of the Kenya Parliamentary Conservation Climate Change Caucus and Strategic Plan for Climate Action and the Environment Sustainability, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said the government is ready to ensure full implementation of the laws once passed by the parliamentarians. The DP commended the caucus chaired by Njoro, Member of Parliament Charity Kathambi, for coming up with a strategic plan, assuring them of the government's support of increasing the share of the National Government Constituency Development Fund kitty on combating climate from 2% to 5%. The DP added that the Kenya Kwanza administration is taking up various measures to lower the rate of desertification in the broader initiative of combating climate change.
How do you explain for the last 1 week Nairobi was more colder than Nyeri and Kericho? How do you explain? It has never happened. And now, again, now we are told by the scientists that we are looking at an oncoming El Nino, where we are going to have flash floods, destruction of property, possible loss of lives in high areas. And as a country, what we are saying is it can no longer be business as usual. So when we saw people uprooting trees yesterday, it was very, very, very hurting, because this climate change thing doesn't know political boundaries, does not distinguish between leaders and the ordinary people. All of us will be victims. So I want to urge the leaders here to take this caucus very seriously. And I want to say this is the way to go. As one member said here, the rigors or the standing orders can make conversation sometimes difficult. I think this is a good approach to caucus and agree on what you are going to do before you take it to Parliament as a legislative proposal. This program of 15 billion trees, if members of Parliament are involved fully, it will succeed. If we leave them out and we try to do it from Nairobi, we'll fail. So I am encouraged that you are proposing to look at the CDF Act to elevate the monies for environment from 2% to 5%. I think that would really help. And I think there is no elected person in this country who will ever go against these people. People who are elected will just do the right thing. And all of us here know and are persuaded that climate change is real.
Now, at that point, allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be taking a look at what is making headlines in the newspapers, quite intriguing, headlines, all with regards to the demonstrations that was witnessed on Wednesday, the aftermath, what leaders are saying across the country, the numbers of those injured, those killed, all about that. We'll be informing you after the break. Stay with us.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
Praise the Lord. My name is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza of Unfailing Love Ministries. I'm inviting you every Wednesday to join us on our program, Victory Through the Word. In this program, we teach you God's Word. We teach you to find solutions and answers to the struggles of life through the Word of God. Everything you ever go through in life, every pain, every tear, every worry, and every questions that you may ever have in this life. You may not get answers out there, but in God's Word, there are answers and there is a solution. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above His name. In His Word, there is hope. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but His Word will always remain abide. I encourage you, engage with us as we study together, as you ask your questions, and let your questions be answered as you are built and as you hear God's Word. Our church is located in Umoja, Inako, near Olobon Hotel, just off Sango Stage along Moi Drive, and the court is known as Church Court. Give us a visit and your life will not remain the same. God bless you. Let's meet every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. only on EBN television.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's get into the newspapers this morning. What is making headlines and why? Now, all these three newspapers, the Star, the Standard, and the Daily Nation, have got something to do with the Azimio protests that were witnessed on Wednesday. And so I'll be giving you just the highlights, even as we talk deeply about it as well. Now, the Standard, deadly aftermath, death and destruction. President William Ruto yesterday accused Azimio leader of leading a criminal gang, blaming him for the damage to property. But the opposition retorted, saying it is government agents who went on a killing spree. Stories on page 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, all to do with the demonstrations. Day after riots, tear-gassed children recuperate in hospitals as activists condemn act. Church tells president to listen to the cries of Kenyans. If not, instability will follow. Families come to terms with the death of children, mothers and fathers in protest. Azimio leader says we will go back to trenches whether they like it or not. The brutality is not ad hoc. It is coordinated and ethnicized. A special squad has been formed within the police service to brutalize and execute civilians. Those are the words of Raila Odinga. William Ruto, on the other hand, says we will push our development agenda forward. We will not allow handshake brothers to hold the economy at ransom and to take our country hostage through violence by causing anarchy. And he refers to the former president Uhuru Kenyatta as well as Raila Odinga. Now, the Standard has done, of course, in-depth analysis of just what happened on Wednesday, the aftermath of it. Page 4 talks of 7 killed, scores injured as ugly side of protest laid bare. 7 killed, scores injured as ugly side of protests laid bare. And of course, this figure could change any minute, looking at just the reports that keep coming in from various hospitals. And of course, those who are still recuperating in hospital. Now, a Form 3 student who had been sent home for school fees is among those who were killed in Migori. At least 40 people are in hospital in Nyanza region alone with gun, arrow, and stab wounds. At least 40 people are in hospital in the Nyanza region with gun, arrow, and stab wounds. 7 families are mourning their loved ones as medics fight to save the lives of more than 20 people injured in the Azimio protest, from bullet wounds to injuries caused by stones and arrows, including police officers as well, most of whom are admitted in hospital and were at the right place just at the wrong time. Stephen Okinyi, a Form 3 student, left their house in Suna West in Migori County on Wednesday to watch protesters engage in police-riding battles. His family knew he will be back home in minutes. Unfortunately, the 19-year-old couldn't return as he was shot by a quote-unquote stray bullet, and he just returned home from Rabur Kogelo Secondary School to collect school fees. The family allowed him to go and satisfy his curiosity as unrest locked the town. Little did they know that that would be their last time they would see their kin alive, and about 20 minutes later, he was fighting for his life after a bullet pierced through his thighs. Now, the student was among several victims of protests called by the Azimio, and at least 7 people died in the Nyanza region alone. So those are the aftermath, really. Bernard Ochieng, a 43-year-old preacher, was shot dead in Kondele, and Dennis Otieno is one of the 5 people who were shot with arrows at Sondu Market at the border of Kericho and Kisumu counties on Wednesday during the anti-government protests that turned illegal. And so these are just figures from the Nyanza region. But of course, if you look at the situation like what happened in Kitengela and in Mlolongo, at least 10 people have been reported dead following the gunshot wounds allegedly inflicted by the police officers. That is just within Mlolongo and Kajiado alone. But remember, protests were witnessed across over 20 counties. So the numbers could change as time goes by, as well as those who have been injured and are in hospital. At the same time, protesters have been arraigned in various courts, and their concerns came even as protesters were arraigned. In Kisii, 9 protesters were charged before Principal Magistrate Caroline Ocharo. They were released on a 3,000 Kenyan shillings cash bail. In Busia, recorded the highest number of fatalities in Western, with 3 people feared dead by a rogue police officer based in Busia town, even as police records show 1 death. The death came from an occurrence book that was filed on Thursday at 3:35 a.m. Now, an APOA, Independent Policing Oversight Authority officer who spoke to the Standard on condition of anonymity said they were dealing with a case of a rogue Deputy Office Commanding Station, that is OCS, of allegation of him shooting 3 people dead. At the same time, 14 police officers were injured during the Wednesday demos. 14 police officers were injured in Nairobi and Siaya County during the Wednesday demos, and at the same time, property worth millions of shillings was destroyed. The Standard also reads, listen to cries of Kenyans, clerics tell Ruto. The National Council of Churches in Kenya called on Ruto to hear Kenyans cry on economic crisis. They claim many families sleeping hungry, businesses collapsing, jobs have been lost, and the cost of living continues to rise. Clerics also recommended that the Finance Act 2023 is repealed so as to review the heavy taxation burden imposed on Kenyans. The churches are also urging a cessation of domestic borrowing by government so as to enable banks loan private businesses that drive the local economy. The clerics also tell Raila not to sell false hope, to reconsider the proposed mass action program, which is likely to make the situation worse for Kenyans. And they also said they're deeply concerned that persons responsible for facilitating the Holocaust in Shakahola are yet to be prosecuted and for their crimes against the people of Kenya, and they're demanding action. So clerics tell Ruto to listen to the cries of Kenyans, even as Raila Odinga says next week, Wednesday, it is back to the streets again for another round of protests. The Standard also reads, manufacturers warn of job losses, economic hit if protests continue, even as we looked at a number of stations, not stations, but supermarkets that were vandalized, including Eastmart in Kitengela. Talk about Quickmart supermarket at Mlolongo. This is just but a number of those that were highlighted across the country. And so manufacturers warn of job losses, economic hit if protest continues. Now, Kenyan businesses yesterday stated counting the cost of protests, which they estimated to be in billions of shillings a day after opposition-led demonstrations against state tax measures that rocked the country. According to the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA, Kenya lost about 3 billion shillings in one day, or loses generally 3 billion shillings a day due to protests, because a lot of businesses are closed. Many people prefer to stay home. I talk about those that are looted, businesses that are looted. Basically just there's a go slow on a number of industries across the country. So KEPSA was talking about 3 billion shillings being lost on a single day that protests are held. So Kenyan businesses and manufacturers warn of job losses, economic hit if protest continues. Standard also reads on city demos left pupils injured, shops looted, and of course, that was the worrying situation that was witnessed in one of the primary schools in Nairobi, where police tear gassed inside the school. A number of students fainted, others were injured. And Mary Okech, a trader in Kangemi Market, was at home on Wednesday, and she decided to stay home and observe the situation, since the area she resides in is along the Waiyaki Way. At midday, she received an unusual call from the new Kihumbuini Primary School, where her daughter is a pupil. The mother was informed that her daughter had been rushed to hospital after inhaling tear gas that landed next to the school, where police were dispersing protesters. So the new Kihumbuini Primary School was a victim of the tear gas that police fired just near the school. A number of students were reported injured, and according to Dr. Mutinda, who is one of the persons that visited the school, at least 42 children were affected during the protest. And the shocking incident, following that shocking incident, the National Gender and Equality Commission has urged the government to assign police officers to guard schools during protests. Now, also, it's a question on just what are we prioritizing as a nation? If there are people that do not go to work during the days of protest, why do we allow our children to go to schools? And that was a key question that was raised by one of the parents as well, because look at this parent who intentionally closed their shop or their businesses to stay home. On the contrary, students are being allowed to go to school. How so? Why so? Because this is such a dangerous situation, and majority of the time, students are in no position, or pupils are in no position to defend themselves. So perhaps those are some of the things that will be reviewed, even as Azimio say, on Wednesday it is back to the streets again. Normalcy returns in the Rift Valley as traders urge Azimio to hold demos. Normalcy returns in the Rift Valley as traders urge Azimio to hold demos. Chairman of the Traders Association in Rift Valley wants the opposition against organizing protests they cannot control, says it jeopardizes peace. Traders urge the opposition to moderate their calls for mass action and for the government to find a middle ground. Importers and exporters in Mombasa as well count losses from protests, even as members of parliament threatened to sue the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, at the ICC over police brutality. Gachagua accuses Raila of paying criminal gangs to cause mayhem, even as the expressway repairs to cost about 700 million shillings. That is what the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport, Kipchumba Murkomen, says. So quite an extensive review of just the aftermath of the protest. 7 people dead in the Nyanza region, at least 10 people dead in Kitengela and Mlolongo. This just the numbers that are coming up that could change more often than not across other regions as well. And then the Standard top of the page also reads, reprieve for Kioni Murathe in the Jubilee Row as the High Court halted the new team led by Kanini Kega from taking office. So reprieve for Kioni Murathe amid Jubilee leadership intrigues as the court has reinstated them back to office. The High Court in Nairobi has reinstated the embattled Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni and the Deputy Chair David Murathe. Justice Asenath Ongeri has suspended a gazette notice issued by the Registrar of Political Parties, Nderitu, that gave the Iyala MP Kanini Kega and his team reins of the party. So the battle for the soul of Jubilee Party continues, even as Treasury's overdraft at CBK hits 79 billion shillings. DCI blames ministry officials and NEC for exams leakage. DCI blames ministry officials and NEC for exams leakage. Now, to the Daily Nation also still talks about the same call to cease fire, and the mounting toll pressure is piling on President William Ruto and Azimio Chief Raila Odinga to resume talks aimed at ending the anti-government protests that have left behind a trail of deaths and injuries, have disrupted the livelihoods and led to business losses, looting and destruction of property. But amid the truce calls, the rival camps are digging in, with President vowing to go after Odinga and his handshake partner, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and the opposition chief promising a continuation of the civil disobedience next week. When will the voice of reason prevail? President William Ruto says, "I will not allow the handshake brothers to plunge the country into anarchy. I will deal with them firmly." Azimio Chief Raila Odinga says Ruto must stop making threats. If he wants to assassinate us, let him do so, but he will also die one day. Archbishop Timothy Ndambuki says, "We fear that the growing sense of hopelessness will push the country towards the instability and possible violence." Sheikh Abubakar Bini says, "We should not wait for someone from outside to come and sit with us. We have religious leaders who can spearhead this process." Archbishop Martin Kivuva says, "We appeal to you to reconsider the proposed mass action program that is likely to worsen the situation for Kenya." Called to cease fire, the voices of the clergy, of course, being heard louder, even as they ask these two leaders to sit together and discuss or talk. And remember, the bipartisan talks was the essence of, dialogue between the two through a parliamentary way. Let the members of parliament, those legislators who have got the power in their hands to change the laws and the bills, to discuss. But we've seen little of that. In fact, as we speak, the bipartisan talks were completely done away with by the Azimio la Umoja, who, continue to point fingers at each other, pointing fingers at Kenya Kwanza subsequently pointing fingers to the other party. And so these two sides barely had anything to discuss. And now the cost of protests as the calls to cease fire, stories, of course, that have been done as well. On page 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the Nation newspaper. The aftermath, counting the costs of Azimio demos, Murkomen Kenyans to pay 700 million shillings for the damage on the expressway. Even as the clergy call for talks, as Ruto Raila camps digging on protest. Kindiki talks staff on demonstration, says he will not allow what he calls quote-unquote terrorism. And that has been the situation basically for the better part of the nation for the last couple of months, even as the protests have been on and off. And so it's a question of what will happen next. What if the government does not sit down with the opposition? Or what if the opposition and the government do not agree? Is this the situation that we're likely to see for the next couple of years? If so, what does that mean for the Republic of Kenya economically, socially, politically as well? Because at the moment, you cannot plan for anything because, you never know. Could wake up and the protests have been put on a Monday or on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday. So it is a bit of instability that is being caused in Kenya. So it's a question of this particular tough moment. Who are the leaders that will stand up for the country? Now, top of the page as well, Kenyans have invaded forests after lifting of logging ban, says the CS Soipantuya. 10 days after President William Ruto announced government's decision to lift the logging ban after 6 years, Environment and Climate Change CS Soipantuya has revealed that a number of Kenyan communities have encroached on forests, engaging in illegal activities such as charcoal burning, with some resorting to building structures and even leasing out the forest land. But question is, was this to be expected? Even as the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, has urged legislators to put aside any party differences and address climate change. So the lift of suspension of logging on forests has had a ripple effect, where some of the communities, according to the Environment CS Soipantuya, have encroached forests. So that is the latest from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, as well as the case on baby Sagini, how cousin gouged out baby Sagini's eyes, Court was told how baby Junior Sagini, cousin, aunt and grandmother drank changa in celebration of what they had done. Now the cousin and the grandmother, those are Rael Mayaka, Pacifica Nyakerario and Alex Maina, continue to be probed on just what went wrong and what led to that brutal attack on baby Junior Sagini. Now the long road for justice for baby Junior Sagini came to an end last week after a Kisii court found that the boy's eyes were gouged out by one of the cousin with a sharp knife. While finding the accused guilty and deferring sentencing, the court noted that his cousin, Alex Maina Ochogo, the grandmother, Pacifica Nyakerario, and Rael Mayaka later placed the boy in a sack and drank changa while dancing, apparently to celebrate what they had done. The attackers thought they had killed the baby, hence the celebration after inflicting serious injuries on baby Sagini. It was one of the most gruesome attacks on a minor by close family, as members in recent history, leaving many Kenyans in shock. Medical experts say nothing will make baby Junior Sagini see again, and the boy is permanently blind. The testimony of Ochogo's girlfriend, who is still a witness in the prosecution, was key evidence that implicated the trio as the main perpetrators. Ochogo is the first accused, and according to his girlfriend, they had been together for 4 years, and she sort of could put him at the scene of the crime to what happened to baby Sagini. So quite unfortunate, and that is one of the saddest stories that has ever come to the limelight. And then finally, the Star newspaper. Arrests loom as Raila Ruto head to Nyanza. 132 people, including the ODM deputy party leader, Wycliffe Oparanya, and Mavoko member of parliament, Macau, were arrested. Both president and ODM leader have planned functions in the region this weekend. Coincidence? Well, you could, decide on that. But of course, this basically brings out the tension that will likely be witnessed in the region as they are set to tour the Nyanza region at the same time. Now, the government was on Thursday night considering arresting and charging opposition leaders with various offenses, including economic sabotage. Senior police officers told the Star last night that they had been instructed to analyze all intelligence available to monitor opposition leaders and arrest any of those who might have been plotting more chaos. According to the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, who announced on Thursday that they will hold continuous demonstrations from Monday to Wednesday next week until quote-unquote Ruto hears the suffering of Kenyans. Now, the state yesterday said that it had arrested 312 people who directly or indirectly planned, orchestrated or financed the Wednesday's violent protests and acts of lawlessness, including Mavoko member of parliament Patrick Macau, and will be charged with various criminal offenses. Now, the ODM deputy party leader Wycliffe Oparanya was briefly held by police at the Kakamega police station, where he had gone to report an attack on him in Busia on Wednesday. But area police commander Joseph Kigen denied any arrest, saying Oparanya went to the Kakamega Central police station to report that his car was damaged by protesters in Busia on Wednesday. Now, of course, these are the latest reports from the police, who are the ones that make the arrests. So whatever is recorded, they have to put a figure to it, to which they say 312 people have been arrested across the country. In Tharaka Nithi, President William Ruto fired yet another salvo at the Azimio la Umoja coalition over the distraction caused by the protest. And he said that we will not allow the handshake brothers to hold our country to ransom and to take it hostage by causing violence, mayhem and anarchy. And he said we will not cede ground to them and they will not succeed. So this comes even as the president is set to visit the Nyanza region, and at the same time, Raila Odinga is also set to visit the Nyanza region. So politically speaking, what does that mean? The Nyanza region has largely been an area that has been considered as a backyard to Raila Odinga. And so what are these inroads that the government is trying to make in the Nyanza region? And what exactly does it mean politically for Raila Odinga? Top of the page as well, horror of men raped by men. Survivors recount their ordeals. horror of men raped by men, even as survivors recount their ordeals. And ODM summons rebel MPs as Raila cracks the whip on renegades. ODM has summoned at least 7 rebel party members of parliament to appear before its disciplinary committee as the opposition outfit initiates the process of kicking out renegade members. Disciplinary committee chairman Professor Ben Sihanya has summoned lawmakers, including Nairobi Women Representative Esther Passaris, to appear before it next week on Wednesday. Yes, next week on Wednesday. Now remember, some of the members of parliament that were elected under the ODM party have been making State House, their home as they visit, including the Lang'ata member of parliament, Jalango, Jalango, that has been visiting the State House. And he has been receiving quite a bit of a backlash from majority of Kenyans, including as well Karoli Omondi, the MP for Suba South, Mark Nyamita, Uriri MP, Gideon Ochanda for Bondo, Elisha Odhiambo Gem, Felix Oduor, Lang'ata, Paul Abuor Rongo, and Kisumu Senator Tom Ojienda. Migori Senator Eddie Gishuru, who is the complainant in the case, wants the party to expel the MPs and have them recalled for violation of Section 14A 1E of the Political Parties Act. So they have been called to appear before the ODM disciplinary committee, will they? As well as top of the page on the Siasa pullout, why collecting signatures to remove President William Ruto will not work. Why collecting signatures to remove President William Ruto will not work. Now remember, we've done this report before on just what it takes to, evict, or pardon me, oust a president from office. And it is more of a legislation process where members of parliament, one tables a motion to impeachment should be supported with at least 2/3 of the House. After that is done, a committee is put up in place to, look into the issue. What is he being ousted for? And one of the key reasons should be the gross violation of any article of the Constitution that has, solely pushed it enough that he has to be ousted from office. After the committee has done its report, it is tabled in Parliament, discussed once again. If 2/3 of the members of Parliament vote to eject him from office, then that particular motion is pushed to the Senate, and subsequently the same numbers as well have to reflect in the Senate. 2/3 of the majority need to, vote in favor of impeaching the president. And so that is the whole process. And in no point in the Constitution, I need to mention that in no point of the Constitution does it talk about the signatures that play a role in the ousting of a president by way of impeachment. And then, of course, there's the incapacity where the president has to be declared incapacity, which means he's not able to conduct the functions that he is set to conduct according to the Constitution. So there's that Siasa pullout that reads on why collecting signatures to remove President William Ruto won't work. And of course, Raila Odinga himself says, the power is always with the people. And the Constitution has given that power to the people who can make a decision on some of the leaders they want in office and leaders that they do not want in office. So it will be quite interesting to see, after Azimio achieved their target of 10 million signatures, then what next? What will they do with those particular signatures? And so that is what the newspapers are looking like this morning. I'll just repeat one more time. Arrests loom as Raila Ruto head to Nyanza, the Star. The Daily Nation talks of call to cease fire, cost of protests. Various leaders, including the clergy, are calling on the two leaders to have a sit down and talk. But the two leaders, particularly the president, seem to have that hard line on not engaging in any discussion with the opposition. And then you've got the standard, the deadly aftermath. 7 people killed in Nyanza, 10 people killed in Mlolongo and Kitengela. About 42 children were injured in the new Kihumbuini Primary School in Nairobi after it was tear-gassed by police officers. Talk about the Nairobi Expressway that has witnessed damage, vandalized, and the CS for Roads and Transport says the government will have to cater for that at a cost of about 700 million Kenyan shillings. And so, without recovering from this, and then next Wednesday is still the same situation. And so that is why we are looking at clerics and the clergy calling for a ceasefire between those two leaders. And that is on the newspapers this morning. Yeah, so you can give us your feedback through our social media platforms on your thoughts about the headlines.
Have already had a baby or are pregnant. Another study by African Population and Health Research Center, APHRC, in 2012 showed that in Nairobi's urban slums, 116 girls out of every 1,000 girls between 15 and 19 years had given birth, with half of these births being unplanned and only 35% were using any method of contraception.
So nilizaa mtoto wangu nikiwa class 7. After kuzaa nikamwacha na aunti yangu nikarudi shule. So hapo kwa shule my mom pia ni asla. Amejaribu juu ni single mother. Pia mimi nikaona mamangu anajaribu sana nisimwaibishe.
At the heart of Mathare constituency is where Soraya organization found solace and comfort. Hailing from Kibera slum to impact the other side of Eastlands, one infamous young woman believed that change could begin with her.
Soraya is my passion. It's what I want and it's what I am. And why I choose to do Soraya is because of the passion that I have. And before deciding to do this, it's a situation that inspired me and triggered me to do such a thing, because a lot of things I've been going through, and I believe with what I'm doing will not only support teenage mothers and school-going girls, but also try and create different opportunities for people to grow and to get things that will help them sustain their life. Yeah.
In our quest to discover her journey and passion, we meet a few young mothers in a graduation ceremony aged between the ages of 15 and 23 years.
Jokindi aliniintroduce kwa Soraya. Alinichukua akanipeleka hapo, na hapo venye niliingia kwa Soraya, maisha naona imebadilika. Kuna vitu zenye Soraya pia imenisimamia kwa kusoma, kwa business, yani wananifanyisha training kusoma huku, na bado wananifundisha business.
Tumefunzwa vitu nyingi, kwa hizo nyingi nataka kuambiaje, kuna watu wao kuja kwa maisha yetu, wengine wanakuja, they take something away from us na wanaenda kabisa na watarudi, na kuna wenye watakuja wa add something in our life na watabaki, watakuwa, they'll stay. Sasa hadi ukichagua marafiki, choose wisely.
They are graduating from a business management class that was organized by our today's unsung hero, Habiba.
My friend, my best friend, and my cousin got pregnant while they were in school, and my friend was forced to drop out. And in African society, if a girl gets pregnant at a young age, the view of society and the society's perspective on that, it's very negative, because once you experience such, you are viewed as an outcast or a bad behavior to others, and you are neglected, and there's a lot of shit you will pass through. And she went through a lot. Actually, they went through a lot, and I felt them, and I was helpless. Yes, I wanted to help in a way, but I had no any means or no ways to help provide for them or support them through the difficult situation. So I thought of why, if yes, they were my friend, and they did go through this, and definitely there are some other ladies somewhere going through the same thing, and there's no one who's there to listen to them, to support them. And right now, even if I don't have sources of funds that I can use to support them, though I have my ways of surviving and my ways of getting my own money, why shouldn't I use that to provide for the girls who need that help more than me?
Soraya organization brings in young mothers from Mathare and is based in Huruma, a residential area located in northeast of Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, that borders Kariobangi and Dandora to the east, Moi Air Base to the south, Mathare Slum to the north, and Isili to the west.
Mzazi wangu alikuwa na hustle sana. Tumezaliwa watoto wawili kwa familia yetu, mimi na kijana, na mimi ndio firstborn. Mzazi wangu alichoka kulingana, yani venye pia amepitia maisha yake. Venye nilishika mimba alikasirika sana. Hata alitaka kushika mwenye alikuwa ananipe mimba, but hakufaulu.
The organization has no limits but takes in even young girls who are still in school and school dropouts.
We are trying our level best to do what we can just to support the girls in the community and to ensure their life are really changing.
Soraya was found early this year by the 23-year-old determined Habiba, who describes the journey as hectic, confusing, but at the same time amazing, because she got to interact and understand the young mothers.
The reason as to why I chose Mathare over Kibra, if you see many opportunities that comes, a lot of people tend to think about Kibra. Yes, it's where I'm raised, I can't lie, and they all say that if you want to do change, start with where you are. I did not want to start with where I am, but I want in future to open such thing in where I'm staying, but I should not start from where I grew up. So the reason is, the way I said, a lot of people, when they think of something good, they think of taking it to Kibra. A lot of initiatives are in Kibra, a lot of supports are in Kibra, but if you go into it deeply, you wouldn't say that a lot of people are being helped. And even if I wanted to start from there, I couldn't do that because there's already such things that exist there. I wanted to do research and find out where, in which area, that whatever I'm going to bring, it's really much needed.
After a fruitful 6 months journey, Soraya held its first graduation on 4th September 2021, and although not all the girls managed to graduate, the 11 who made it were so excited upon the successful completion of intensive training on life skill, business, and counseling classes.
I promised the girls believe in us, and me disappointing them actually breaks me down. And about the graduation, it was to happen last week, but I didn't have enough funds to fund it. I felt last week, actually, I felt like I was giving up, but my friend told me, like, you can see where you started and where you're going, and the way the girls believe in you, and the way they trust you, and the way they view you. You don't have to do this. So actually, it got into my mind, and I decided to throw away the bad feeling I had, and stood up and looked for ways on how to ensure the graduation happened and ensure that they were happy and they appreciate everything. And I'm glad it happened the way I thought of.
Marianne, a graduate from Soraya organization, describes the journey.
Kwanza, siwezi regret, but maisha imekuwa ngumu sana. Na kitu yenye mimi huamini, kenye nataka ndafanya. So maisha imejaribu kuwa ngumu kwangu, but nimekazana kulingana Nikiangalia venye mzazi wangu alikuwa anakazana na mimi na huyo ndugu yangu, hata mimi nakazana. So hawa watoto wangu wapate kitu yenye mimi sikupata. Lakini maisha imekuwa ngumu kidogo.
In her speech, Fauzia, who has been one of the trainers, encourages them to make good use of the skills gained.
Kufundishwa ni kitu moja, kupractice ni kitu ingine, kulearn kama kitu imefail ni kitu ingine. It might look like it's something very minor, like kuambia chukua kitabu, record how many kama ni ndizi, skuma ama mahindi umeuza, but itakupeleka mbali. It might look very weird wakati nilionyesha how to separate personal versus business finance, but ukiitilia maanani utaona penye itakusaidia. Ni baby steps. Mtoto akianza kutembea, labda kuna wengine kwanza wanaanza wakitambaa, after that wanashikilia wakitembea. Take yourself as a child. You may not remember everything that you covered, but I'm very sure from the notes you guys wrote, there is something that stood out. There is something that I believe at this point, you're actually exploring that particular thing. As Habiba has mentioned, if you're stuck anywhere, if you reach out to Habiba, Habiba will reach out to me and we'll be able to support where we can. Together we can go far. Ukiwa peke yako unaweza kimbia uende mbali, but ukishafika pale kama ulikuwa peke yako na how you are not taking care of yourself, you're not doing the right things, utazida ukiwa pale. But ukikuwa kikundi, wewe uko good at identifying one or two things, you're good at making this, she's good at communicating. If you join forces, you're going to go far.
We're going to fund their businesses and ensure their businesses are actually running. And not only to fund the business and go away, but to monitor them to ensure that they are getting something out of the business and their life are really improving. Other than that, we are going to take in another cohort, but it will be a larger number compared to the last one. And we are also going to add the number of girls in school. Yeah.
Mpango yangu ya kwanza ni kuendelea na pia kuencourage wasichana wetu wa mtaa. Najua asmi nilikuwa naenda hapo kwa hiyo shule, yani watu wanaona ni kama nafanya ujinga na waste time. But for me najua kenye nilikuwa nanipeleka hapo, hata wale wenye waliachia kwa njia naweza waambia warudi. Soraya kuna kitu ndani.
Soraya means sunflower. It's an Arabic name, means sunflower, and the meaning of sunflower itself, it describes a woman's strength of a woman and the ability that a woman have. And Soraya basically deals with ladies, and with the word describe our strength and describe a lot about women.
They say it doesn't matter the things that you do, it matters how they impact. This is Habiba's way of impacting the world. This is how she has started. She has started in Mathare area. Reporting for EBN TV, my name is Alice Jerry from Mathare area.
Well, Alice, thank you so much for that amazing report that you filed. Indeed, those are the unsung heroes in the society. We will talk about political leaders, what they have done, but we eventually talk about the social people, those around us that are doing the small things that, you know, are making the difference in the society. So all our support, of course, goes out to such institutions that are doing great issues. And like I said earlier, teenage pregnancies or teen moms, you know, make mistakes, or, you know, it is not their doing, and they need all the support that they can from those around them to guide them to the better path forward. And of course, they won't be teens forever. They eventually grow up and become youths into adulthood. So quite a nice story right there that was filed by Alice Njeri. So that brings us to the end of our broadcast this morning on Morning Live. Thank you for your valuable company, for the feedback as well that has been coming in. We've got quite amazing programming lined out throughout the day. We've got leadership coming up next in just a few minutes. They will be talking deeply about some of these issues that have been highlighted on the newspapers this morning. So that is something you definitely want to stick around for. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourselves a wonderful morning, blessed weekend ahead.
through the morning rush and the buzz. Find a voice you can trust, a voice of reason, a voice of direction.